It is good we gather to raise up that which is worthy. Please join me in saying the words as Mary Beth kindles the chalice. We know they're coming, those words. There. Here they come. All right. We kindle this flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
Good morning. We are now in Pia Ondegus, or the boughs shedding month of February. I hope you, like me, were able to enjoy some of the glorious sunshine this week as the days slowly start getting longer. Amen. I want to recognize that we worship together today on Abenaki land and respectfully acknowledge the Abenaki people who have cared for this land throughout the generations. My name is Mary Beth McNulty. I use she, her pronouns, and I want to welcome all of you joining us in person and online this morning. Is there anyone in the sanctuary today for the first or second time? Would you mind raising your hand so we can welcome you? Welcome, welcome. If you haven't already after the service, you can check in with today's welcome ambassador, Tom Porter. Tom? Oh, there's Tom. Thank you. It is sadly still that time of year where many of us are contending with respiratory illness. With this in mind, we are asking folks to mask, recognizing that wearing a mask is an act of care, not just for yourself, but for others around you. Speaking of others around you, this morning we'd like to offer you the chance to share a hopefully germ-free greeting with your neighbor. A wave, a head nod, a hand to your heart, a Vulcan salute are all welcome alternatives to a handshake as you say hello. Thank you. I have just one announcement for today. Sunday Circles will be meeting today in the parlors at 11:35. Sunday Circles provide time for connection with others after the service through a deeper dive with a more structured format than coffee hour. Groups of 5 to 8 members, friends or guests, meet to reflect upon the sermon topic and or how they are doing, taking turns speaking and listening. A facilitator is present to help guide the time together. Friends, just as you are, whatever it took for you to make it here this morning, you are welcome.
I'd like to invite you in body or spirit to rise with me. We can stand together and we'll sing the very first hymn in our hymnals. May nothing evil cross this door. The words will be on the overhead. You can also join us in these hymnals as well. May nothing evil cross this door, and may ill fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by faith made strong. Thank you for lending your voice. Please be seated.
Now's the time when I'll invite all of the children who would like to come up and seat yourselves here before we head down to our classes. Come on in. Today'd be great if some of you came right up close, because we're going to need to get to you. Yeah, as more friends come, let's fill in the space in the front too. So get it all full, because we want to be able to get to all of you. Come on up. So as you're sitting down, I would like you all to try to imagine that you're on a playground right now and you've just somehow hurt yourself. Something has gone wrong, you have an injury or a boo-boo, and you're going to need some help. And just in case your imagination is on vacation right now, Rowan's going to pass out some cards that will give you ideas. And so you can either choose something from your imagination or what's on the card. But in a moment, I want you to keep it to yourself for now. But in a moment, I'm going to ask you what happened, what's wrong, and you can tell me. So let's just pass those cards out to everybody who wants one. Yeah. Okay. So first, actually, I've got to wait till Rowan's got those passed out. So maybe somebody can grab those from her and keep passing them out to the rest. Okay, Rowan, we are ready to do our first aid now. So I'm going to call on my first child, and I would like you to tell me what has happened. Annabelle. Annabelle has scraped her knee, so now Rowan is going to give you a Band-Aid. That must really hurt, Annabelle. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Okay, how about you, Em?
I jumped off a swing and I scraped my knee.
Scraped his knees. I'm so sorry to hear that. That must have really hurt. Rowan's going to help you out with the Band-Aid right now. Okay. Vera, you don't want to tell us? Okay, well, Rowan's going to help you anyway, okay? And I'm so sorry that happened to you. Okay, Collins, what happened over there? Broken wrist. Oh my gosh, that must have really hurt. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Cassidy? Oh, a bee sting. Ouch, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That must really hurt. Rowan's going to help you out with a Band-Aid. Leo, did you get hurt?
Yes.
What happened?
I scraped my knee.
You scraped your knee? I'm so sorry that happened to you. That must have really hurt. Rowan's going to help you out with a Band-Aid now. Rowan is working so fast with these Band-Aids. This is really impressive first aid skills that she's bringing. Lucille, did you get hurt? Poison ivy. So itchy, so uncomfortable. I'm really sorry that happened to you. And I may get to a point where I don't get all the names, and I'll just point. Saoirse, do you have an injury? Nothing's wrong? Do you want a Band-Aid? No? Okay. I'm really sorry that happened to you. That must hurt. Okay, who's in front of Rowan now? Is it Stella? Avali? Yeah. Shark bite. There's been a shark bite. Okay, so Avali's right behind you now, Rowan. Right behind you, Rowan, is Avali. What's wrong, Avali? I couldn't hear it. Could you hear it, Rowan?
Sprained ankle.
Sprained ankle. I am so sorry that happened to you. That must hurt so much. Who are you going to next?
Christian, what happened to you? Gummy bears. He needs gummy bears. He's feeling a hunger that is deep for gummy bears. I'm so sorry that has happened to you, Christian. That must be really hard. I'm glad you have the Band-Aid now. Chloe, you've scraped your knee. I'm so sorry that has happened to you. That must really hurt. Jesse, do you have an injury? A dizzy spell. That is so uncomfortable. I'm really sorry that's happening to you. How about Aiden? Something go wrong for you, Aiden? I can't hear it from here. Can you hear it, Ron? A broken leg. Ouch. I'm so sorry that's happened to you, Aiden. That must really hurt. I'm glad that Rowan's there with the Band-Aid. Isaac? A broken wrist. Ouch. That must be so painful, Isaac. I'm really sorry that happened to you. Now, is there anybody else out there with an injury we should know about? Just wave your arms if you need help. Anybody? It looks like Forrest might have an injury. What's the matter, Forrest? Forrest has lost an eyeball. Forrest, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That must be really painful, and I'm so glad you have that Band-Aid now. Does nobody sees a problem with how we're treating the children here today? No, there's no problem with this, right?
Yes, there is.
There's a problem?
Yeah.
You don't like my first aid?
I don't get it. I mean, we treated you all the same.
Broken legs.
Band-Aids don't help broken legs?
When I said I had a scraped knee, you put the Band-Aid on my wrist.
You had a scraped knee, but you got a Band-Aid on your wrist.
Broken legs can't just be fixed with a Band-Aid.
You can't fix a broken leg with just a Band-Aid.
Yeah, you need stuff to help.
I need stuff to help.
A test. You can't fix gummy bears with a Band-Aid.
Gummy bear hunger is not cured by Band-Aids alone. Chloe? You mean the Band-Aid wasn't helpful for the dizzy spell?
It wasn't helpful for the eyeball that
It didn't help when Forrest lost his eyeball when he got the Band-Aid on his wrist.
because he held the other one in.
So, wait, I think I'm understanding you. I think I'm starting to get it. So you're saying that fair isn't everyone getting the same thing. Fair is everyone getting what they need? Is that more fair? What do you think would be different about my behavior and Rowan's behavior if instead of treating you equally, this says equality, I responded in an equitable manner, meaning that I responded based on your specific situation? So some of us needed small Band-Aids. Actually, I think most of you needed large Band-Aids from what I heard, but could have needed small Band-Aids. Small. Some of us needed larger Band-Aids. Some of us need our injury wrapped. We might need a sling. Oh, look, Rowan's got a lot of things. We might need gummy bears. Maybe our blood sugar is low and we really need a little something. Yeah, so Rowan's got a lot of different things in there that might help us more than just a Band-Aid on the wrist. And some of us might need Band-Aids, but need them to reflect the skin tone on our body. I think Rowan has some Band-Aids in there that look like lots of different skin tones. So when I showed compassion to each person by listening, and I demonstrated empathy, and I thought I was treating you all equally, it kind of didn't matter, because the impact on you was that you didn't get what you need or what you deserve. So what I needed to do was to use equity, not equality, as the value that guided me. Collins? Oh, I am not going to attempt to treat all of these imaginary illnesses before we go downstairs. I think it might take a while. There are a lot of you. So now it is time for us to sing the children out to their classes. Rowan's going to lead the group down. You can keep those and put them in the recycling bin in your classroom if you have a card.
Repeat after me. As you journey, may you know, love and hope go with you, learn and grow, and together.
Good morning. My name is Diana Kaiser, and I'm one of the 4 voices in February to speak to you about stewardship. I'm a recent transplant from Summit, New Jersey, where I was a member of Beacon UU. I discovered UUism shortly after the 2016 election. At Beacon, I found people who shared my values and a place where I could put my energies towards issues that I care deeply about: treating people with respect and dignity, welcoming the immigrant, and working towards becoming an anti-racist. When I moved to Vermont last year as a divorced empty nester, I didn't know a soul here, but I was drawn to Vermont's beauty and reputation as a bastion of liberal thinking, not to mention its proximity to Canada, just in case. I signed the book in May, just in time to vote on the appointment of Reverend Karen, whom I had met in New Jersey. I knew that if I joined FUUSB, I would be able to build a community, meet people with whom I could become friends, and contribute to critical issues. I work full-time and I teach part-time at UVM, so I don't have many free hours, but I do have resources that I can give to the society, keeping up this beautiful building, hiring great staff, and giving to local organizations that share our values takes money. I know from my business experience that you spend money on the things you value. For me, keeping this vibrant community alive is one of the most important line items in my monthly budget. And this year, as we enter into perhaps one of the most consequential elections of our time, the need for supporting organizations such as FUUSB is even more critical. Thank you.
Spiritual practices come in many forms within our Sunday service: generosity, spoken meditation, stillness, music, creating space for our joys, for our sorrows, and for our gratitude. In this portion of our Sunday service, each of us will have the chance to enter into those communal practices to which we are drawn, to hold space and to offer our loving witness for each other. As a justice-seeking spiritual community, our generosity practice includes sharing half of the offering each Sunday. Offerings this month will be shared with the Blue Northside Housing Cooperative Initiative, a project of Blue, the Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism organizing collective, creating affordable housing that will make 24 Black and Indigenous family homeowners in North Minneapolis. We have a short video featuring Blue Executive Director, Lena K. Gardner, and Asoliso Young from Urban Homeworks, a partner with Blue in the development effort. That was a short excerpt from an inspiring video. The Racial Justice team hopes that each of you will find just 12 minutes to view the video in its entirety and learn more about this exciting project. The link to the full video will be sent out through Community Messenger and posted on our internal Facebook page after the service.
At this time, I want to invite us all into a time of meditation, of contemplation, of prayer, letting your body find its posture of dignity, letting a relaxed breath come in, And a relaxed breath come out. A reminder that you are here now. An invitation to let your eyes close or to soften, however you find yourself in a place of receptivity. Spirit of life and love, can we be real for a second? There are times when life is just inexplicable. How we rise each morning instead of burying our heads under bed covers, sewing them shut, making blanket forts that would protect us from the onslaught. How we keep on welcoming babies with bone-deep joy to this too often sordid world, eking out the joy and delight that is always there. How we fill burlap sacks with grit and gratitude, our hands shredded, and still we drag one over the other, protection for ourselves and for others. How we keep on refusing the pull towards greedy dark, most of us keeping one toe, some of us, perhaps some of the time, whole torso in light, stumbling and bumbling every time amid unearned grace. Into this circle of care, there is so much joy, a celebration beginning the Lunar New Year. Gratitude and joy for yesterday's midwinter retreat with 60 wonderful humans here, replenishing each other and themselves. Joy for those who found courage and took yesterday's penguin plunge. Joy also for fellow First UU congregant Abby, who was elected to the Decker Towers Resident Council Board this week, adding her voice to others working cooperatively towards safety and real community among residents, growing the capacity of care towards and with fellow residents and advocating for better conditions. Boy, are they needed there. Gratitude also that the Burlington Housing Authority has finally hired a part-time security guard to sweep the building in order to continue growing access to true shelter there. We hold joy that last Sunday 6 people signed the book to become members. Yes, that is also joyful. And there, too, amid and amongst us is sorrow. Sorrow for the continuing authoritarian and violent repression in Myanmar, this iteration now 3 years on. And for those who have experienced the loss of a loved one or are experiencing the anniversary of the death of someone near to them, we hold them in our circle of care. For all the joys and sorrows and gratitudes that go unspoken yet still remain true, let us sit together in shared stillness for just a few moments, connecting to the prayers only our hearts know until the chime rings again. Amen.
When the music plays in a moment, we invite you to come forward to silently mark a joy, a sorrow, or a gratitude in your life by moving a stone from one of the baskets onto the table, creating a representation of our shared lives at this particular fleeting moment. As you are moved, please come forward along the outer aisle and return to your seat via the central aisle. If you have a gift to add to the offering, you can place it in one of the baskets here or there. or you can make your offering online. If you are at home, or those of you who want to remain seated, we invite you to lean into the music as an opportunity for stillness and centering as it makes sense for you. Please join me in our offering dedication words. With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice. Our reading today is a brief excerpt from the book Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson. If you've seen the movie, which is currently playing, you may recognize some of these words as they are used to close out the movie. We, in the developed world, are like homeowners who inherited a house on a piece of land that is beautiful on the outside, but whose soil is unstable loam and rock, heaving and contracting over generations, cracks patched, but the deeper ruptures waved away for decades, centuries even. Many people may rightly say, I had nothing to do with how this all started. I have nothing to do with the sins of the past. My ancestors never attacked indigenous people, never owned slaves. And yes, not one of us was here when this house was built. Our immediate ancestors may have had nothing to do with it, but here we are, the current occupants of a property with stress cracks and bowed walls and fissures built into the foundation. We are the heirs to whatever is right or wrong with it. We did not erect the uneven pillars or joist, but they are ours to deal with now. And any further deterioration is, in fact, on our hands. Unaddressed, the ruptures and diagonal cracks will not fix themselves. The toxins will not go away, but rather will spread, leach, and mutate as they already have. When people live in an old house, they come to adjust to the idiosyncrasies and outright dangers skulking in the old structure. They put buckets under a wet ceiling, prop up groaning floors, learn to step over that rotting wood tread in the staircase. The awkward becomes acceptable, and the unacceptable becomes merely inconvenient. Live with it long enough, and the unthinkable becomes normal. Exposed over the generations, we learn to believe that the incomprehensible is the way that life is supposed to be.
Perhaps you have seen the graphic depiction of the difference between equality and equity. There are many versions of it out there in the world. The one I am thinking about has 3 different people, and we see their backs, and they're attempting to look over a fence at a baseball game happening on the other side. Each one of these people is 3 different heights. One is really tall and can see over the fence. One is medium, and if they get on their tiptoes, they too can see over the fence. And the third is of a height that no matter what they do, there is no way that they can see over the fence. That is the first frame of this 3-frame graphic. Now, in the second frame, which is intended to depict equality, all 3 individuals are given the same size box to stand on as they watch over the fence. And the tall one, who could already see just fine, has an even clearer view. And the middle height person now does not have to strain to watch the ball game. Maybe it's the Super Bowl, but really in this thing, it's a baseball game. They didn't plan it for today. The shortest person still cannot see, even though they have that higher boost. It's just not sufficient. This frame depicts equality because all 3 got the same solution to the perceived problem. It was perceived as the same. Right? And we hear echoes of it from our Time for All Ages. Everybody got a Band-Aid on the wrist. The third frame of this graphic is intended to depict equity. It's the same 3 individuals in the same context, but the solution is different. For the tall person, there is no box that is given. They already have a fine view. The second person receives that one box that allows them a fine view. And the third person, that shorter person, they're given 2 boxes so that they can stand tall enough to be able to have a fine view. This is an example of equitable response. As we learn from the Time for All Ages, not everybody needs
a Band-Aid on the wrist. Not everybody needs the same size box in order for all of us to have equitable access to most anything, but certainly to life. Some of us do need a Band-Aid on the wrist, but some of us need it on our knee, and some of us need a sling for a broken arm, or a whole bunch of gummy bears. Or if it was me, it's those cola gummy bears by Haribo, right? Those are way better than just the ones. Sometimes, though, we keep trying to hand out the same size box, not recognizing how unfair that is. Sometimes we keep handing out Band-Aids for the wrist when that is not what is needed. It's a little bit like our fire drill last November, when we learned that theoretically anybody and everybody could leave because we have open doors everywhere. Except for when it turns out that folks in the sanctuary need to exit that way. And if you use a walker or you use a wheelchair, you have to stay in the narthex until emergency personnel come. So we don't have currently for our old building an equitable way to exit. As you heard in this morning's reading by Isabel Wilkerson from her book, Cast, she uses the imagery of an old worn house, an old worn building, to convey the structural inequities that she calls the universal caste system. But it's one system that takes different shapes throughout different cultures around the globe. She writes, "America is an old house. We can never declare the work over. Wind, flood, drought, and human upheavals batter a structure that is already fighting the flaws that were left unattended in the original foundation." And here I want to have that side note, right? The original system for this wonderful meeting house didn't have in mind that we would have people with walkers and people with wheelchairs. Wilkerson goes back to say, when you live in an old house or you meet in an old meeting house, you may not want to go into the basement after a storm to see what the rains have wrought. But choose not to look, however, at your own peril. The owner of an old house knows that whatever you are ignoring will never go away. Whatever is lurking will fester whether you choose to look at it or not. Ignorance is no protection from the consequences of inactions. Whatever you are wishing away will gnaw at you until you gather the courage to face what you would rather not see. Here ends the quote. There is a movie out that is based on that book. The movie is called Origin. It's directed by Ava DuVernay, who I believe is is a gift to America in the 21st century, an amazing movie director. And as Mary Beth said earlier, the closing monologue for that movie includes words from the book, the words that Mary Beth spoke earlier. If you've not seen the movie, I commend it to you. It didn't get Oscar attention, but that should not deter you. Like the book, the movie takes a very complex and perhaps even counterintuitive concept and makes it accessible and easier to understand. The movie's not a documentary, but it is really good storytelling, taking true facts from Wilkerson's life, the losses she experienced, the old house she inherited and had to renovate, and all of the brilliant ways in which she sees the world and is able to help us understand what she calls the caste system. Yes, I am a fan. I think there are a few fans here in the room too. When I first came, or actually before I officially arrived, there was a story here at First UU that caught my attention. And it's one that surprises me that we don't actually talk much about. And it's the 2022 donation of $50,000 by this congregation towards the founding of the Richard Kemp Center. $50,000. $50,000. Not an act of charity, but as I have come to understand it, and I hope you do too, an act of justice and equity. Now, if this is news to you, I'm not surprised. You might be new to the congregation, and like I said, I don't find us talking about it very much. But also, even if you were here, there was a letter that went out from the board sharing their decision with you, but it went out in July, and who pays attention to congregational emails in July? As I continue to be in this first year a kind of cultural anthropologist trying to understand the congregation, I have been curious about how little we talk about this. I've been curious about how, when we do talk about it, how we do that, and what is the narrative we convey. And I wonder, is there a consensus about the narrative within our own congregation, and is there consensus about this donation outside of our congregation? The Richard Kemp Center, if you are not familiar with it, is a Black-led, Black empowerment community organization right here in Burlington. It is both relatively new and long in the making, the love and brainchild of the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance and other supporters of the vision that for Black people to thrive in Burlington and throughout Vermont, there must be culturally empowering spaces. The center is named after a beloved and respected member of the Burlington community, Richard Kemp, himself African American, and also a cherished member of this congregation who died in 2021. When I was learning about this congregation during the search process, I was really impressed with the board's choice to pass on such a large amount of money in this particular way. I learned that it came about because of a proposal by the congregation's racial justice team, which asked the board to consider their request as a form of taking seriously the congregation's unanimous vote in February 2022, 2 years ago, right, to live into the 8th principle, which asks us to dismantle systemic oppressions, including racism, in ourselves and in our institutions. Here are words from that proposal to the board. Quote, they say, an essential tenet of social justice work is being in meaningful relationship with the people directly affected by oppression and injustice you want to address. Without a meaningful relationship, our efforts at social justice are likely to be misguided and perhaps even cause harm. The racial justice team has, for the past year, had a goal of building relationship between First UU and the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance. The Alliance is a well-established BIPOC-led anti-racism organization in Vermont. End quote. Now, I agree, if we are not in relationship with each other and with community partners, it does not matter what our vision is. And this is true on all fronts, but most especially when it comes to addressing systemic racism, when it comes to addressing peculiar and particular anti-Blackness that seems to pervade American society and I observe is very much present in Vermont. You might remember that during the pandemic, the congregation and other organizations received funds from the federal government. PPP, Payroll Protection Program. That was the key word at the beginning of the pandemic. This congregation received funds at the time when we had not yet experienced the deleterious effects of the pandemic financially. That was the first year and a half when our finances were solid. And then the PPP funds came in first as a loan. We thought we'd have to pay them back. And then a flat-out grant, no obligation to return the money. The racial justice team saw an opportunity for us to live out our values, not just the 8th principle, but around justice and equity, which was then, as it still is, our 2nd principle. justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. The RJT had been reading what was reported in the press, that the PPP program was being shown to favor larger, more established, hello, that's us, and predominantly white organizations. Again, there we are. This included groups with pre-existing relationships with banks that could help quickly turn around any required application. Again, this is us. The RJT's proposal stated, like almost all forms of white privilege, we did not ask to be favored in this way, and it's not our fault that the system put us at this advantage. But we have a responsibility to use our privilege in a way that helps to level the playing field and correct the advantage we've been given. Did you hear the resonance in the language of their proposal and how Isabel Wilkerson talks about inequities that she names as the caste system? Here are Wilkerson's words again. None of us was here when this house was built. Our immediate ancestors may have had nothing to do with it, but here we are, the occupants of a property with stress cracks and bowed walls and fissures built into the foundation. We are the heirs to whatever is right or wrong with it. We did not erect the uneven pillars or joists, but they are ours to deal with now. I kind of want to ask them, were they reading that book at the time that they wrote the proposal? Justice and equity are a part of the principles of our Unitarian Universalism. Justice has always been included. It's mentioned as the fourth of the original 6 principles when Unitarians and Universalists came together in 1961. Equity joined the party later in 1985. And as our faith movement shifts from principles to values, both of these concepts figure even more prominently and add more texture to what it means for us to be Unitarian Universalist in the 21st century. In the proposed new language, with its 7 values, love at the center, this is how justice and equity are described. Let me speak to justice first. We will work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association, and society at large. And now here is how equity is described in the new values. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Now, each value has a brief description about what we Unitarian Universalists mean by it, and then a covenant statement of how we, UUs, are going to live into it. So 2 parts meant to help us to be more accountable to those values so that they can guide our lives. Both parts of the description are important, right? Because you've been around the world, you know that somebody can say justice, and it does not sound like the justice you mean, or the justice we mean, right? So it's important that we define that, and then also that we operationalize it, that we get some idea of how to move towards it. So here again, justice, this is how we are defining it moving forward if we vote in the positive in June as a whole faith movement. Justice is to work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. And we get there by dismantling racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, within our association, and within the wider world. And here is what we mean when we say equity. We mean it that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. And the way we get there is to use our time, attention, and money to build and sustain accessible and inclusive communities. So reflecting on what I just said, reflecting on those values, I see just how audacious that passing on of $50,000 to a Black-led community organization is. Those PPP funds were relatively easy for us as an established institution and for us as a majority white congregation to gain access to. And we chose to pass them along to build a sustainable and accessible, to help to build a sustainable and accessible, inclusive community space. In this case, to give 10% of the seed money to build a community center by and for Black people in the greater Burlington area, that is something to be proud of. So when we have our financial worries and woes, as we will always have, our pride in this action can keep us company and sustain our spirits, knowing that we chose our values over comfort. Knowing that we have done it in the past means that it is more easy for us to do it in the present and do it in the future. It matters that we understand that this passing along of that money was no act of charity. It was an act of justice and equity in relationship with a community partner. It matters that we understand it as living into our values and principles, even if it causes us some financial heartburn. It matters that we recognize that in making that choice, the leadership of this congregation was building a new way, the hymn we're going to sing at the end of the service. That the leadership was being a part of working for all to be free, yes, of hate and greed and jealousy, but also the fetters of systemic racism. It matters that we acknowledge that putting love at the center of actions sometimes has inconvenient consequences and sometimes painful sacrifices, but also benefits beyond our capacity at the time to design them. Because that is what it takes to be a part of bending the moral arc of the universe towards justice. At the start of this sermon, I described for you a graphic representation of the difference between equality and equity, right? Those three people of differing heights and differing solutions. And what I described for you was created by Craig Frola. And over the years, many people have been inspired by this graphic. Many have identified its shortcomings. Some have adapted it. I'm thankful actually to Mary Beth, today's worship associate, for turning me on to some of the more creative versions that have emerged over the years. There's one with bicycles and wheelchairs. There's one with shoes. There's one that gets rid of the ball game and talks about picking apples. There's also one that has added a fourth frame. It depicts those same three individuals with all their different body heights still watching that baseball game. But in this frame, the fence has been dismantled. There is no barrier for anyone to enjoy the game. It is available to all. That frame is called liberation. We might call it beloved communities. Amen. So be it. See to it.
invite you to stand with me in body or spirit as we sing together that closing hymn that was just mentioned. Hymn number 1017. It's in the hymnal. We'll also have the words up here on the overhead. You got to help me out with this one. Come on. We are building a new day. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free in every jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. One more time, we are building. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. Thank you. Please be seated.
Please join me in these words as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again.
May you know the blessing you already are. May you sense the blessing you yet can be. And may we all go out and be a blessing in the world.